Chapter 25. I fall asleep for a short time, wake up, fall asleep again, wake up over and over. I don't want to miss the moment she appears. But I do miss it. I look up, and she's already seated at the desk, just like last night. The clock next to my bed shows a little past 3. I'm positive. I close the curtains before going to bed, but again they're wide open. But there's no moon tonight. That's the only difference. There's a heavy cloud cover, and it might be drizzling outside. The room's much darker than last night, with only distant lamps in the garden casting a faint light between the trees. It takes a while for my eyes to adjust. The girl is seated at the desk, head in her hands, gazing at the painting. She's wearing the same clothes as last night. Even if I squint and look hard this time, it's too dark to make out her face. Strangely enough, though, her body and silhouette stand out, floating there clearly in the darkness. The girl is Miss Saeki. When she was young, I have absolutely no doubt about it. She looks deep in thought, or in the midst of a long, deep dream. Check that maybe she herself is Miss Saeki's long, deep dream. At any rate, I try to breathe very quietly so as not to disturb the balance of this scene before me. I don't move an inch, just glance occasionally at the clock to check the time. Time passes slowly, regularly. Out of the blue, my heart starts beating hard, a dry sound like somebody's knocking at the door. The sound echoes through the silent dead of night room and startles me so much that I nearly leap right out of bed. The girl's black silhouette moves ever so slightly. She looks up and listens in the dark. She's heard it, the sound of my heart. She tilts her head, just a fraction for all the world like an animal in the woods, focusing on an unexpected, unknown sound. Then she turns to face me in bed. But I don't register in her eyes, I can tell. I'm not in her dream. She and I are in two separate worlds divided by an invisible boundary. Just as quickly as it came on, my pounding heart settles back down to normal. And so does my breathing. I'm back to being invisible, and she's no longer listening. Her gaze falls back on Kafka on the shore. Head in hands like before, her heart is drawn once more toward the boy in that summer scene. She's there for about 20 minutes, then vanishes. Just like last night, she stands up barefoot, noiselessly glides toward the door, and without opening it disappears outside. I sit still for a while, then finally get up. Keeping the light off, I go over in the darkness and sit down on the seat she just occupied. I rest both hands on the desk and absorb the afterglow of her presence. I close my eyes, scooping up her shivering heart, letting it seep inside mine. I keep my eyes closed. There's one thing I discover the girl and I have in common. We're both in love with someone who's no longer of this world. A short time later, I fall into a restless sleep. My body needs rest, but my mind won't allow it. I swing like a pendulum back and forth between the two. Later, though I'm not even sure if it's light out or not, birds begin making a racket in the garden, and their voices pull me completely awake. I tug on jeans and pull a long-sleeved shirt over my t-shirt and go outside. It's after 5 o'clock, and nobody else is up. I walk out of the old-looking town through the pine forest set up as a windbreak, past the seawall and out onto the beach. There's barely a breeze against my skin. The sky is covered with a layer of gray clouds, but it doesn't look like it's going to rain anytime soon. It's a quiet, still morning. Like a layer of soundproofing, the clouds absorb every sound the earth sends up. I walk for a while on a path that parallels the sea, picturing the boy in the painting walking the same path, canvas chair in hand, sitting on the shore. I'm not sure, though, what scene along this shore the painting depicts. The painting only shows the beach, the horizon, sky, and clouds, and an island. But there are a number of islands along the shore, and I can't exactly recall what the one in the painting looked like. I sit down on the sand, face the sea, and make a kind of picture frame with my hands. I imagine the boy sitting there. A single white seagull flits aimlessly across the windless sky. Small waves break against the shore at regular intervals, leaving behind a gentle curve and tiny bubbles on the sand. All of a sudden, I realize I'm jealous of the boy in the painting. "You're jealous of the boy in the painting," the boy called. Crow whispers in my ear. You're jealous of that pitiful 20-year-old boy mistaken for someone else and pointlessly murdered, 30 years ago. So insanely jealous it hurts. This is the first time you've ever been jealous in your life. Now you finally understand what it feels like. It's like a brush fire torching your heart. You've never ever in your life envied anybody else or ever wanted to be someone else, but right now you do. You want more than anything to be that boy. Even knowing that at age 20, he was going to be smashed over the head with an iron pipe and beaten to death, you'd still trade places with him. You'd do it to be able to love Miss Saeki for those 5 years. And to have her love you with all her heart. To hold her as much as you want to make love to her over and over. To let your fingers run over every single part of her body and let her do the same to you. And after you die, your love will become a story etched forever in her heart. Every single night she'll love you in her memory. Yup, you're in a strange position, all right. You're in love with a girl who is no more jealous of a boy who's gone forever. Even so, this emotion you're feeling is more real and more intensely painful than anything you've ever felt before. And there's no way out. No possibility of finding an exit. You've wandered into a labyrinth of time, and the biggest problem of all is that you have no desire at all to get out. Am I right? Hoshino comes in a little later than yesterday. Before he does, I vacuum the first and second floors, wipe down all the desks and chairs, open the windows and clean them, wash out the restroom, throw out the garbage, pour fresh water in the vases. Then I turn on all the lights and switch on the catalog computers. All that's left is to open the front gate. Hoshino checks my work and gives a satisfied nod. You learn pretty quick, and don't fool around, do you? I boil some water and make him some coffee. Like yesterday, I have a cup of Earl Grey. It started raining outside pretty heavily. You can hear thunder off in the distance. It's not yet noon, but it's like evening, it's so dark. Hoshino, I have something I'd like you to do for me. What's that? Can you get hold of the sheet music for Kafka on the shore somewhere? Hoshino thinks it over. As long as it's on a music publisher's website, I imagine you could download it for a fee. I'll check it out and let you know. Thanks. He sits down on a corner of the counter, puts the tiniest lump of sugar into his coffee cup, then carefully stirs it with a spoon. So you like the song? Yeah, a lot. I'm fond of it myself. It's a lovely tune, quite unique. Simple yet deep. It tells you a lot about the person who composed it. The lyrics, though, are pretty symbolic, I venture. From time immemorial, symbolism and poetry have been inseparable. Like a pirate and his rum. Do you think Miss Saeki knew what all the lyrics mean? Hoshino looks up, listening to the thunder, as if calculating how far away it is. He turns to me and shakes his head. Not necessarily. Symbolism and meaning are two separate things. I think she found the right words by bypassing procedures like meaning and logic. She captured words in a dream, like delicately catching hold of a butterfly's wings as it flutters around. Artists are those who can evade the verbose. So you're saying Miss Saeki maybe found those words in some other space, like in dreams? Most great poetry is like that. If the words can't create a prophetic tunnel connecting them to the reader, then the whole thing no longer functions as a poem. But plenty of poems only pretend to do that, right? It's a kind of trick, and as long as you know that it isn't hard, as long as you use some symbolic-sounding words, the whole thing looks like a poem of sorts. In Kafka on the Shore, I feel something urgent and serious. Me too, Hoshino says. The words aren't just something on the surface, but the words and melody are so inseparable in my mind. I can't look at the lyrics as pure poetry and decide how persuasive they are by themselves. He shakes his head slightly. At any rate, she was definitely blessed with a natural talent and had a real sense for music. She was also practical enough to grab an opportunity when it came along. If that terrible incident hadn't taken her out of circulation, I'm sure she would have developed her talent even further. In any number of ways, it's a real shame. So where did all that talent go? Hoshino looks at me. You're asking where Miss Saeki's talent went after her boyfriend died? I nod. If talent's a kind of natural energy, doesn't it have to find an outlet? I don't know, he replies. Nobody can predict where talent's headed. Sometimes it simply vanishes. Other times it sinks down under the earth like an underground stream and flows off who knows where. Maybe Miss Saeki focused her talents somewhere else other than music, I venture. Somewhere else. Oshima, obviously interested, narrows his brow. What do you mean? I'm at a loss for words. I don't know. I just feel maybe that's what happened. Maybe into something intangible, something other people can't see, something you pursue for yourself. An inner process. Oshima brushes his hair off his forehead, locks of it spilling between his slender fingers. That's an interesting idea. For all we know, after Miss Saeki came back to town, maybe she used her talent somewhere out of sight, as you said, for something intangible. But you have to remember, she disappeared for about 25 years, so, unless you ask her yourself, there's no way of knowing for sure. I hesitate, then decide to just go ahead. And I ask you something really stupid. I blush. Totally off the wall, no problem. I don't necessarily mind stupid, of the wall things I can't believe. I'm actually saying this to somebody. Oshima tilts his head ever so slightly, waiting for me to go on. Is it possible that Miss Saeki is my mother? Oshima leans back against the counter, taking time to search for the right words. The clock on the wall ticks away as I wait. Finally, he speaks up. So what you're saying is that when she was 20, Miss Saeki left Takamatsu in despair and was living alone someplace when she happened to meet your father, Koichi Tamura, and they got married. They were blessed with you, and then 4 years later something happened, and she ran away, leaving you behind. After this, there's a mysterious blank, but then she shows up back in Shikoku. Do I have that right? Yeah. It's not impossible. What I mean is, at this point, I don't have any evidence to refute your hypothesis. So much of her life is a total mystery. Rumor has it she lived in Tokyo. Plus, she's about the same age as your father. When she came back to Takamatsu, though, she was alone. How old did you say your sister is? 21, the same age as me, Oshima says. I'm not your sister, that much I know for certain. I've got parents, and my brother, all related by blood. A family way too good for me. He folds his arms and looks me at for a while. I've got a question for you. Have you ever looked at your family register? That would give your mother's name and age. Of course I have. So what did it say? There wasn't any name, I say. He looks surprised. No name. How can that be? There wasn't any. No kidding. I have no idea why. As far as the family register is concerned, I don't have a mother or an older sister. There's just my father's name and mine on the register. Legally, I'm a bastard. An illegitimate child, but you actually had a mother and a sister at one time. I nod. I did, until I was 4. The 4 of us lived together. It's not just my imagination. I remember it very clearly. The 2 of them left soon after I turned 4. I pull out my wallet and show Oshima the photo of me and my sister playing at the shore. He gazes at it for a moment, smiles, and hands it back. Kafka. On the shore, he says. I nod and put the photograph back in my wallet. The wind swirls outside, pounding rain against the window. The ceiling light casts a shadow of me and Oshima on the floor, where we look like we're having an ominous talk in some alternate world. You don't remember your mother's face? Oshima asks. You lived together till you were 4, so you should have some memory of what she looked like. I shake my head. I just can't recall, not at all. I don't know why, but the part of my memory where her face should be is dark, painted over blank. Oshima ponders this for a while. Tell me more about why you think Miss Saeki might be your mother. That's enough, I say. Let's just forget it. I'm making too much of it. It's all right, go ahead and say what's on your mind, he says. Then the 2 of us can decide if you're making too much of it or not. Oshima's shadow on the floor moves in time with his movements, though it's slightly more exaggerated. There are an amazing amount of coincidences between me and Miss Saeki, I say. They're like pieces of a puzzle that fit together. I understood this when I listened to Kafka on the shore. First off is the fact that I was drawn to this library like fate reeling me in. A straight line from Nakano to Takamatsu. Very strange when you think about it, like the plot of a Greek tragedy, Oshima comments. Plus I add, I'm in love with her, with Miss Saeki. Yeah, probably, Oshima repeats, frowning. You mean, it's probably Miss Saeki you're in love with? Or that you're probably in love with her? I turn red. I can't really explain it, I reply. It's complicated, and there's a lot of stuff I still don't get, but you're probably in love probably with Miss Saeki, right? I say. Very much probably, but also very much I nod. At the same time, it's possible she's your mother, another of my patented nods. For a 15-year-old who doesn't even shave yet, you're sure carrying a lot of baggage around. Oshima takes a sip of his coffee and carefully places the cup back on its saucer. I'm not saying that's wrong. Just that everything has a critical point. I don't say anything. Oshima touches his temples and is lost in thought for a time. He crosses his slim fingers together in front of his chest. I'll try to find that sheet music as soon as I can. I can finish up here. So why don't you go back to your room at lunchtime? I take over from Oshima at the front counter. There are fewer visitors than usual, probably due to the steady rain. When he comes back from his break, he hands me a large envelope with a computer printout of the sheet music for Kafka on the Shore. Convenient world we live in, he says. Thanks, I tell him. If you don't mind, why don't you take a cup of coffee upstairs? No cream or sugar. You make really good coffee. I make a fresh cup and take it on a tray to the second floor. As always, the door to Miss Saeki's room is open, and she's at her desk writing. When I put the cup of coffee on her desk, she looks up at me and smiles, then puts the cap back on her fountain pen and rests it on top of the paper. So are you getting used to things around here bit by bit? I answer. Are you free now? Yes, I am, I tell her. Why don't you sit down? Then Miss Saeki points to the wooden chair beside her desk. Let's talk for a while. It's starting to thunder again. Still far away, but gradually getting closer. I do what she says and take a seat. How old are you again? 16, 15. I just turned 15, I respond. You ran away from home, didn't you? Yes, I did. Was there some reason you had to do that? I shake my head. What should I say? Miss Saeki picks up the cup and takes a sip while she waits for my answer. I felt like if I stayed there, I'd be damaged beyond repair, I say. Damaged, Miss Saeki says, narrowing her eyes. Yes, I say. After a pause, she says, it sounds strange for a boy your age to use a word like damaged, though I must say, I'm intrigued. What exactly do you mean by damaged? I search for the right words. First I look for the boy named Crow, but he's nowhere to be found. I'm left to choose them on my own, and that takes time. But Miss Saeki waits there patiently. Lightning flashes outside, and after a time thunder booms far away. I change into something I shouldn't. Miss Saeki looks at me with great interest. As long as there's such a thing as time, everybody's damaged in the end, changed into something else. It always happens sooner or later. But even if that happens, you've got to have a place you can retrace your steps to, a place you can retrace your steps to, a place that's worth coming back to. Miss Saeki stares straight at me. I blush, then summon my courage and look up at her. She has on a navy blue dress with short sleeves. She must have a whole closet of dresses in different shades of blue. Her only accessories are a thin silver necklace and a smallish wristwatch with a black leather band. I look for the 15-year-old girl in her and find her right away. She's hidden asleep, like a 3D painting in the forest of her heart. But if you look carefully, you can spot her. My chest starts pounding again, like somebody's hammering a long nail into the walls surrounding it. For a 15-year-old, you make a lot of sense. I have no idea how to respond to that, so I don't say anything. When I was 15, Miss Saeki says with a smile, all I wanted was to go off to some other world, a place beyond anybody's reach. A place beyond the flow of time, but there's no place like that in this world exactly. Which is why I'm living here in this world where things are continually damaged, where the heart is fickle, where time flows past without a break, as if hinting at the flow of time. She's silent for a while. But she goes on, when I was 15, I thought there had to be a place like that in the world. I was sure that somewhere I'd run across the entrance that would take me to that other world. Were you lonely when you were 15? In a sense, I guess. I wasn't alone, but I was terribly lonely. Because I knew that I would never be happier than I was then. That much I knew for sure. That's why I wanted to go, just as I was, to some place where there was no time. What I want is to grow up faster. Miss Saeki pulls back to study my expression. You must be much stronger and more independent than I am. At your age I was filled with illusions of escaping reality, but you're standing right up to the real world and confronting it head-on. That's a big difference, strong and independent. I'm neither one. I'm just being pushed along by reality, whether I like it or not. But I don't say anything. You know, you remind me of a 15-year-old boy I used to know a long time ago. Did he look like me, I ask. You're taller and more muscular than he was, but there is a resemblance. He didn't enjoy talking with other kids his age. They were on a different wavelength, so he spent most of his time holed up in his room reading or listening to music. He'd get the same frown lines too whenever the topic got difficult. And you love to read as well, I nod. Miss Saeki glances at her watch. Thank you for the coffee, taking that as my signal to leave. I stand up and head for the door. Miss Saeki picks up her black fountain pen, slowly twists off the cap, and goes back to her writing. There's another flash of lightning outside, bathing the room for an instant in a weird color. The clap of thunder hits a moment later. This time it's closer than before. Kafka, Miss Saeki says. I stop at the doorway and turn around. I just remembered that I wrote a book on lightning once. I don't say anything. A book on lightning. I went all over Japan interviewing people who'd survived lightning strikes. It took me a few years. Most of the interviews were pretty interesting. A small publisher put it out, but it barely sold. The book didn't come to any conclusion, and nobody wants to read a book that doesn't have one. For me, though, having no conclusion seemed perfectly fine. A tiny hammer in my head is pounding on a drawer somewhere persistently. I'm trying to remember something very important, but I don't know what it is. By this time, Miss Saeki's gone back to her writing, and I go back to my room. The rainstorm continues to batter us for another hour. The thunder is so incredibly loud that I'm afraid the windows in the library will shatter. Every time a bolt of lightning streaks across the sky, the stained glass window on the landing flashes an image like some ancient ghost on the white wall across from it. By 2 o'clock the storm lets up and yellowish light begins to spill out between the clouds, like a reconciliation has finally been reached. Water continues to drip down in the gentle sunlight. When evening rolls around, I start closing up the place for the night. Miss Saeki says goodbye to me and Oshima and heads home. I hear the engine of her Golf and picture her seated at the wheel turning the key. I tell Oshima I'll finish locking up. Whistling some aria, he goes off to wash up in the restroom, then leaves. I listen as the Mazda Miata roars off, the sound fading off in the distance. Now the library is all mine. It's much quieter than ever before. I go to my room and study the sheet music for Kafka on the Shore. Like I suspected, most of the chords are simple. The refrain, though, has a couple tricky ones. I go over to the reading room and try playing it on the upright piano. The fingering's really tough, so I practice it over and over, trying to get my hands around it, and somehow wind up getting it to sound right. At first the chords sound all wrong. I'm sure it's a misprint, or that the piano's out of tune. But the longer I listen to how those two chords sound one after the other, the more I'm convinced the whole song hangs on them. These two chords are what keep Kafka on the Shore from degrading into some silly pop song, give it a special depth and substance. But how in the world did Miss Saeki come up with them? I go back to my room, boil water in the electric kettle, and make some tea. I take out the old records we found in the storage room and put them on the turntable one after another. Bob Dylan's Blonde on Blonde, the Beatles' White Album, Otis Redding's Dock of the Bay, Stan Getz's Gets/Gilberto, all hit albums from the late 60s. That young boy with Miss Saeki right beside him must have done what I was doing, putting the music felt like it was taking me and the whole room off to some different time or world before I was even born. As I enjoy the music, I review the conversation we'd had that afternoon, trying to capture our exact words. When I was 15, I thought there had to be a place like that in the world. I was sure that somewhere I'd run across the entrance that would take me to that other world. I can hear her voice right beside me. Inside my head, something knocks at a door, a heavy, persistent knock. An entrance. I lift the needle off the Stan Getz album, pull out the single of Kafka on the Shore, place it on the turntable, and lower the needle, and listen to her sing. The drowning girl's fingers search for the entrance stone and more. Lifting the hem of her azure dress, she gazes at Kafka on the shore. The girl who comes to this room most likely located that entrance stone. She's in another world, just as she was at 15, and at night she comes to visit this room. In her light blue dress, she comes to gaze at Kafka on the shore. Suddenly, completely out of nowhere, I remember my father talking about how he'd once been struck by lightning. He didn't tell me himself, I'd read about it in an interview in a magazine. When he was a student in art college, he had a part-time job as a caddy at a golf course. One day, he was following his golfer around the course when the sky suddenly changed color, and a huge thunderstorm crashed down on them. They took refuge under a tree when it was hit by a bolt of lightning. This huge tree was split right in two. The golfer he was caddying for was killed, but my father, sensing something, leaped away from the tree in time. He got some light burns, his hair was singed, and the shock of the lightning threw him against a rock. He struck his head and lost consciousness, but survived the ordeal with only a small scar on his forehead. That's what I was trying to remember this afternoon, standing there in Miss Saeki's doorway listening to the roar of the thunder. It was after he recovered from his injuries that my father got serious about his career as a sculptor. As Miss Saeki went around interviewing people for her book, maybe she met my father. It's entirely possible. There can't be that many people around who've been struck by lightning and lived, can there? I breathe very quietly, waiting for the dawn. A cloud parts, and moonlight shines down on the trees in the garden. There are just too many coincidences. Everything seems to be speeding up, rushing toward one destination. Chapter 26. It was already pretty late in the afternoon, and they had to find a place to stay for the night. Hoshino went to the tourist information booth at Takamatsu Station and had them make a reservation at an inn. It was within walking distance of the station, which was nice, but otherwise was typical and somewhat dumpy. Neither Hoshino nor Nakata minded much, though. As long as there were futons to sleep on, they were fine. As before, breakfast was provided, but they were on their own for dinner. This particularly suited Nakata, who was likely to drop off to sleep any time. Once they were in their room, Nakata had Hoshino lie face down on the futon, got on top of him again, and pressed down with both thumbs up and down his lower back, carefully checking out the condition of his joints and muscles. This time he was much more gentle, just tracing the spine and checking out how tense the muscles were. "Something wrong?" Hoshino asked anxiously. "No, everything's fine. Nakata doesn't find anything wrong with you now. Your spine's in good shape." "That's a relief," Hoshino said. "I wasn't looking forward to another torture session, I know. Nakata's really sorry. But you did tell me you didn't mind pain, so I went ahead and did it as hard as I could." "Yeah, I know, that's what I said. But listen, Gramps, there are limits. Sometimes you've got to use common sense. But I guess I shouldn't be complaining. You did fix my back. But man alive, I never felt anything like that in my life. The pain was unimaginable. It felt like you were ripping me apart. Like I died and came back to life, or something." "Nakata was dead for 3 weeks once." "No kidding," Hoshino said. Still face down, he took a gulp of tea and munched on some crunchy snacks he'd picked up at a convenience store. "So you really were dead?" "I was." "Where were you all that time?" Nakata doesn't remember. "It felt like I was somewhere far away doing something else. But my head was floating, and I can't remember anything. Then I came back to this world and found out I was dumb. I couldn't read or write anymore." "You must have left your ability to read and write over on the other side." "Maybe so." The two of them were silent for a time. Hoshino decided it was best to believe whatever the old man told him, no matter how eccentric it sounded. At the same time, he felt uneasy, as if pursuing this dead for 3 weeks idea any further would lead him into some chaotic, out-of-control situation. Better to turn the conversation back to more practical matters. "So now that we're in Takamatsu, Mr. Nakata, where are you planning to go?" "I have no idea," Nakata replied. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do." "What about that entrance stone?" "That's right." Nakata completely forgot about it. "We have to find the stone. But I don't have a clue where to look. My mind's floating and won't clear up. I wasn't too bright to begin with, And this kind of thing only makes it worse. We're in a bit of a fix, then, aren't we? Yes, I'd say we are. Not that sitting here staring at each other is all that much fun. This won't get us anywhere, you're right. I think we should go around asking people, if that stone's somewhere around here. If you say so, then that's what Nakata wants to do. I'm pretty dumb, so I'm used to asking people questions. My grandpa always said asking a question is embarrassing for a moment, but not asking is embarrassing for a lifetime. I agree. When you die, everything you know disappears. Well, that's not what he meant exactly, Hoshino said, scratching his head. Anyway, do you have a mental image of the stone? What kind of stone it is, how big it is, its shape or color, what it's used for? If we don't have some details, it's hard to ask. Nobody's going to know what the heck we're talking about. If we just say, is there an entrance stone anywhere around here? They'll think we're nuts. You see what I mean? Yes, I do. I might be dumb, but I'm not nuts. Okay, the stone Nakata's looking for is very special. It's not so big. It's white and doesn't have any smell. I don't know what it's used for. It's round, sort of like a rice cake. He held up his hands to indicate something the size of an LP record. So if you spotted it, do you think you'd recognize it? Like, hey, here it is. Nakata would know it right away. There must be some kind of story or legend behind it. Maybe it's famous and on display at a shrine or someplace. It could be, I suppose, or maybe it's just in some house and people use it as a weight when they make pickles. No, that's not possible. Why not? Because nobody can move the stone. No, but at least he looked like he was briskly rubbing his short salt and pepper hair. I don't really know about that, he finally said. All I know is it's about time somebody moved it. Hoshino did some pondering himself. And that somebody's you, right? At least for now, yes, Nakata replied. That's correct. Is the stone found only in Takamatsu? No, it isn't. It doesn't really matter where it is. It just happens to be here right now. It would be much easier if it was in Nakano Ward. But moving that kind of stone must be risky, that's right. Maybe Nakata shouldn't bring this up, but it is very dangerous. Damn, Hoshino said, slowly shaking his head. He put on his Chunishi dragon's cap and pulled his ponytail out the hole in the back. This is starting to feel like an Indiana Jones movie or something. The next morning, they went to the tourist information booth in the station to ask if there were any famous stones in Takamatsu or the vicinity. Stones, the girl behind the counter said, frowning slightly. She'd been trained to introduce all the usual tourist places, but nothing beyond that, and the question clearly had her flustered. What sort of stones? Are you looking for a round stone about so big? Hoshino said, forming his hands in a circle the size of an LP, just as Nakata had done. It's called the entrance stone. Entrance stone, yep. That's the name. It's pretty famous. I imagine. Entrance to what, though? If I knew that, I wouldn't have to go to all this trouble. The girl thought about it for a while. Hoshino gazed at her face the whole time. Kind of pretty, he judged, though her eyes are a bit too far apart, giving her the look of a cautious bovine. She made a few calls, but it didn't look like she was getting anywhere. I'm sorry, she finally said. Nobody's heard of a stone by that name. Nobody. She shook her head. Excuse me for asking, but are you here just to find this stone? Yeah, I don't know if it's just to see it. Anyway, I'm from Nagoya. The old guy's from Nakano Ward in Tokyo. Yes, Nakata's from Nakano Ward, Nakata chimed in. I rode in a lot of trucks, and even got treated to eel once. I came this far and haven't spent a cent of my own money. I see, the girl said. Not to worry. If nobody's heard about the stone, what are you gonna do, huh? It's not your fault. But maybe they call it something else. Are there any other famous stones around here? You know, something with a legend behind it, maybe. Or some stone people pray to. Anything like that. The girl looked timidly at Hoshino with her too far apart eyes, taking in his Chunishi dragon's cap, his hair and ponytail, his green-tinted sunglasses, pierced ear, and rayon aloha shirt. I'd be happy to tell you how to get to the city public library. You could research the stone there. I don't know much about stones myself. I'm afraid the library, however, yielded nothing. There wasn't a single book in the place devoted to stones in or around Takamatsu. The reference librarian saying they might run across a reference somewhere plunked down a stack of books in front of them. Legends of Kagawa Prefecture, legends of Kobo Daishi and Shikoku, a history of Takamatsu, and the like. Sighing deeply, Hoshino started leafing through them. For his part, Nakata carefully turned one page after another in a photo collection entitled Famous Stones of Japan. "I can't read," he said, "so this is the first library I've ever been in. I'm not proud of it," Hoshino said, "but this is a first for me too. Even though I can, it's kind of interesting now that we're here. Glad to hear it. There's a library in Nakano Ward. I think I'll stop by there every now and then. The best thing is they don't charge anything." Nakata had no idea they'd let you in if you can't read. "I've got a cousin who was born blind, but he goes to see movies," Hoshino said. "What fun could that be?" "I can see, but I've never been to a movie theater." "You're kidding. I'll have to take you sometime." The librarian came over and warned them to keep their voices down, so they stopped talking and went back to their books. When he finished with Famous Stones of Japan, Nakata put it back on the shelf and began flipping through Cats of the World. Grumbling all the while, Hoshino managed to look through all the books piled up next to him. Unfortunately, he couldn't find any matches in any of them. There were several references to the stone walls of Takamatsu Castle, but the stones in those walls were so massive that for Nakata to pick one up was out of the question. There was also a promising legend about Kobo Daishi, a famous scholarly monk of the Heian period. It was claimed that when he lifted up a stone in a wilderness, a spring gushed out, and the place became a fertile rice field, but that was the end of the story. Hoshino also read about one shrine that had a stone called the Treasure of Children's Stone, but it was more than a yard tall and shaped like a phallus. No way they could be the one Nakata was looking for. The two of them gave up, left the library, and went to a nearby diner for dinner. They both had noodles topped with tempura, Hoshino ordering an extra bowl of noodles and broth. "I enjoyed the library," Nakata said. "I had no idea there were so many kinds of cats in the world. The stone thing didn't pan out, but that's all right," Hoshino told him. "We just got started. Let's get a good night's sleep and see what tomorrow brings." The next morning they went back to the library. Like the day before, Hoshino read through a huge stack of books one after the other. He'd never read so many books in his life. By now he was fairly conversant with the history of Shikoku, and he'd learned that people had worshipped different kinds of stones for centuries. But what he really wanted, a description of this entrance stone, was nowhere to be found. By afternoon his head was starting to ache, so they left the library, laid down on the grass in a park for a long while, and gazed at the clouds drifting by. Hoshino smoked. Nakata sipped at hot tea from his thermos. "It's going to thunder again tomorrow," Nakata said. "Meaning you're going to make it thunder?" "No, Nakata can't do that. The thunder comes by itself." "Thank God for that," Hoshino said. They went back to their inn, took a bath, and then Nakata went to bed and was soon fast asleep. Hoshino watched a baseball game on TV with the sound down low, but since the Giants were soundly beating Hiroshima, he got disgusted with the whole thing and turned it off. He wasn't sleepy yet and felt thirsty, so he went out and found a beer hall and ordered a draft and a plate of onion rings. He was thinking of striking up a conversation with a young girl sitting nearby, but figured it wasn't the time or place to make a pass. Tomorrow morning, after all, it was back to searching for the elusive stone. He finished his beer, pulled on his Junichi dragon's cap, left, and just wandered around. Not the most appealing-looking city, he decided, but it felt pretty good to be walking around wherever he wanted in a place he'd never been before. He always enjoyed walking anyway. A Marlboro between his lips, hands stuck in his pockets, he wandered from one main street to another and down various alleys. When he wasn't smoking, he whistled. Some parts were lively and crowded, others deserted and deathly quiet. No matter where he found himself, he kept up the same pace. He was young, healthy, carefree, with nothing to fear. He was walking down a narrow alley full of karaoke bars and clubs that looked like they'd be operating under different names in 6 months, and had just come to a dark, deserted spot when somebody called out behind him, "Hoshino." "Hoshino," in a loud voice. At first, he couldn't believe it. Nobody knew him in Takamatsu. It had to be some other Hoshino. It wasn't that common a name, but not that uncommon either. He didn't turn around and kept walking. But whoever it was followed him, calling out his name. Hoshino finally stopped and turned around. Standing there was a short old man in a white suit. White hair, a serious pair of glasses, a white mustache and goatee, white shirt and string tie. His face looked Japanese, but the whole outfit made him look more like some country gentleman from the American South. He wasn't much over 5 feet tall, but looked less like a short person than a miniature scaled-down version of a man. He held both hands out in front of him like he was carrying a tray. "Mr. Hoshino," the old man said, his voice clear and piercing with a bit of an accent. Hoshino stared at the man in blank amazement. "Right you are. I'm Colonel Sanders. You look just like him," Hoshino said, impressed. "I don't just look like Colonel Sanders. It's who I am, the fried chicken guy." The old man nodded heavily. "One and the same, okay. But how do you know my name?" "Shinichi Dragon's Fens. I always call Hoshino. Nagashima's your basic giant's name, likewise for the dragons. It's got to be Hoshino, right?" "Yeah, but Hoshino happens to be my real name." "Pure coincidence," the old man boomed out. "Don't blame me. So what do you want?" "Have I got a girl for you?" "Oh, I get it," Hoshino said. "You're a pimp. That's why you're dolled up like that." "Mr. Hoshino, I don't know how many times I have to say this, but I'm not dressed up as anybody. I am Colonel Sanders. Don't get mixed up here, all right, okay? But if you're the real Colonel Sanders, what the heck are you doing working as a pimp in a back alley in Takamatsu? You're famous and must be raking in the dough from license fees alone. You should be kicking back at a poolside somewhere in the States enjoying your retirement. So what's the story?" "There's a kind of a warp at work in the world." "A warp? You probably don't know this, but that's how we have 3 dimensions. Because of the warp. If you want everything to be nice and straight all the time, then go live in a world made with a triangular ruler." "You're pretty weird, you know that," Hoshino said. "But hanging out with weird old guys seems to be my fate these days. Any more of this, and I won't know up from down." "That may be, Mr. Hoshino, but how about it? How about a nice girl?" "You mean like one of those massage parlor places?" "Massage parlor? What's that? You know those places where they won't let you do the dirty deed, but can manage a BJ or a hand job. Let you come that way, but no in and out." "No, no," Colonel Sanders said, shaking his head in irritation. "That's not it at all. I girls do it all, hand job, BJ, whatever you want, including the old in and out." "Aha, so you're talking a Soapland, what land?" "Quit kidding around, okay? I've got somebody with me, and we've got an early start in the morning. So I don't have time for any fooling around tonight. So you don't want a girl? No girl. No fried chicken. I'm going back to get some sleep, but maybe you won't get to sleep that easily," Colonel Sanders said knowingly. "When a person's looking for something and can't find it, they usually can't sleep very well." Hoshino stood there, mouth agape, staring at him. "Looking for something? How do you know I'm looking for something? It's written all over your face. By nature, you're an honest person. Everything you're thinking is written all over your face. It's like one side of a split-open dried mackerel. Everything inside your head's laid out for all to see." Instinctively, Hoshino reached up and rubbed his cheek. He spread his hand open and stared at it, but there was nothing there. "Written all over my face." "So," Colonel Sanders said, one finger held up for emphasis, "is what you're looking for by any chance round and hard?" Hoshino frowned and said, "Come on, old man, who are you? How could you know that I told you it's written all over your face?" "You don't get it, do you?" Colonel Sanders said, shaking his finger. "I haven't been in this business all these years for my health, you know. So you really don't want a girl? I'm looking for a kind of stone. It's called an entrance stone. I know all about it." "You do?" "I don't lie or tell jokes. I'm a straight-ahead, no-nonsense type of guy. You know where the stone is. I know exactly where it is. So could you tell me where?" Colonel Sanders touched his black-framed glasses and cleared his throat. "Are you sure you don't want a girl? If you'll tell me where the stone is, I'll think about it," Hoshino said dubiously. "Great. Come with me." Without waiting for a reply, he walked briskly away down the alley. Hoshino scrambled to keep up. "Hey, old man. Colonel. I've only got about $200 on me." Colonel Sanders clicked his tongue as he trotted down the road. "That's plenty. That'll get you a fresh-faced, 19-year-old beauty. She'll give you the full menu, BJ, hand job, in and out, you name it. And afterward, I'll throw this in for free. I'll tell you all about the stone." "Geez Louise," Hoshino gasped. Chapter 27. It's 2:47 when I notice the girls. I glance at the clock by my bed to remember the time. This time I stay up waiting for her to appear. Other than the occasional blink, I don't close my eyes once. I thought I was paying attention, but somehow I miss the actual moment she appears. She has on her usual light blue dress, and is sitting there, the same as before, head in hand, silently gazing at the painting of Kafka on the shore. And I'm gazing at her with bated breath. Painting girl and me, we form a still triangle in the room. She never tires of looking at the picture, and likewise I never tire of gazing at her. The triangle is fixed, unwavering. And then, something totally unexpected happens. Miss Saeki, I hear myself say. I hadn't planned on speaking her name, but the thought welled up in me and spilled out. In a very small voice, but she hears it. And one side of the triangle collapses. Maybe I was secretly hoping it would, I don't know. She looks in my direction, though not like she's straining to see. Her head still in her hands as she quietly turns her face. Like something she's not sure what has made the air tremble, ever so slightly. I don't know if she can see me, but I want her to. I pray she notices me and knows I exist. Miss Saeki, I repeat. I can't keep myself from saying her name. Maybe she'll be frightened by my voice and leave the room, never to return. I'd feel terrible if that happened. No, not terrible, that's not what I mean. Devastated is more like it. If she never came back, everything would be lost to me forever. All meaning, all direction. Everything. I know this, but I go ahead and risk it anyway and call her name. Of their own accord, almost automatically, my tongue and lips form her name over and over. She's not looking at the painting anymore, she's looking at me. Or at least I'm in her field of vision. From where I sit, I can't see her expression. Clouds move outside and the moonlight flickers. It must be windy, but I can't hear it. Miss Saeki, I say again, carried away by some urgent, compelling, overwhelming force. She takes her head out of her hands, holds up her right hand in front of her, as if to tell me not to say anything more. But is that what she really wants to say? If only I could go up to her and gaze into her eyes to see what she's thinking right now, what emotions are running through her. What is she trying to tell me? What is she hinting at? Damn, I wish I knew. But this heavy just before 3 a.m. Darkness has snatched away all meaning. It's hard to breathe, and I close my eyes. There's a hard lump of air in my chest, like I've swallowed a rain cloud whole. When I open my eyes a few seconds later, she's vanished. All that's left is an empty chair. A shadow of a cloud slides across the wall above the desk. I get out of bed, go over to the window, and look at the night sky. And think about time that can never be regained. I think of rivers of tides, forests and water gushing out, rain and lightning, rocks and shadows. All of these are in me. The next day, in the afternoon, a detective stops by the library. I'm lying low in my room and don't know he's there. The detective questions Oshima for about 20 minutes and then leaves. Oshima comes to my room later to fill me in. A detective from a local precinct was asking about you, Oshima says, then takes a bottle of Perrier from the fridge, uncaps it, pours the water into a glass and takes a drink. How did he know I was here? You used a cell phone. Your dad's phone. I check my memory and nod. At night, I ended up all bloody in the woods behind that shrine. I called Sakura on the cell phone. I did, but just once the police checked the calling record and traced you to Takamatsu. Usually police don't get into details, but while we were chatting, I got him to explain how they traced the call. When I want to, I can turn on the charm. He also let out that they couldn't trace the person you called, so it must have been a prepaid phone. Anyhow, they know you were in Takamatsu, and the local police have been checking all the hotels. They found out that a boy named Kafka Tamura, matching your description, stayed in a business hotel in town through a special arrangement with the IMT until May 28th. The same day, somebody murdered your father. At least the police didn't find out about Sakura. I'm thankful for that, having bothered her enough already. The hotel manager remembered that you'd asked about our library. Remember how he called to see if you were really coming here? I nod. That's where the police stopped by. Oshima takes a sip of Perrier. Naturally, I lied. I told the detective I hadn't seen you since the 28th. That you'd been coming every day, but not once since you might get into trouble, I say. If I didn't lie, you'd be in a whole lot more trouble, but I don't want to get you involved. Oshima narrows his eyes and smiles. You don't get it, do you? You already have gotten me involved, yeah. I guess so, let's not argue, okay? What's done is done. Talking about it now won't get us anywhere, I nod, not saying a word. Anyway, the detective left his card and told me to call him right away if you ever showed up again. Am I a suspect? Oshima slowly shakes his head. I doubt it. But they do think you might be able to help them out. I've been following all this in the newspaper. The investigation isn't getting anywhere, and the police are getting impatient. No fingerprints, no clues, no witnesses. You're the only lead they have. Which explains why they're trying so hard to track you down. Your dad's famous too, so the murder's been covered in detail on TV and in magazines. The police aren't about to sit around and twiddle their thumbs, but if they find out you lied to them, they won't accept you as a witness anymore, and there goes my alibi. They might think I did it. Oshima shook his head again. Japanese police aren't that stupid, Kafka. Lacking in imagination, yes, but they're not incompetent. I'm sure they've already checked all the passenger lists for planes from Tokyo to Shikoku. I don't know if you're aware of this, but they have video cameras set up at all the gates at airports to photograph all the boarding passengers. Now they know you didn't fly back to Tokyo around the time of the incident. Information in Japan is micromanaged, believe me. So the police don't consider you a suspect. If they did, they wouldn't send some local cop, but detectives from the National Police Agency. If that happened, they would have grilled me pretty hard, and there's no way I could have outsmarted them. They just want to hear from you whatever information you can provide about the incident. It makes perfect sense what he says. Anyhow, you'd better keep a low profile for a while, he says. The police might be staking out the area, keeping an eye out for you. They had photos of you with them. Copies of your official junior high-class picture. Can't say it looked much like you, though. You looked really mad in the photo. That was the only photograph I left behind. I always tried to avoid having my picture taken, but not having this one taken wasn't an option. The police said you were a troublemaker at school. There were some violent incidents involving you and your classmates. And you were suspended 3 times, twice, not 3 times. And I wasn't suspended, just officially grounded, I explain. I breathe in deeply, then slowly breathe out. I have times like that. Yeah, you can't control yourself, Oshima says. I nod. And you hurt other people. I don't mean to. But it's like there's somebody else living inside me. And when I come to, I find out I've hurt somebody. Hurt them? How much? Oshima asks. I sigh. Nothing major. No broken bones or missing teeth or anything. Oshima sits down on the bed, crosses his legs, and brushes his hair off his forehead. He's wearing navy blue chinos, a black polo shirt, and white Adidas. Seems to me you have a lot of issues. You've got to deal with a lot of issues. I look up. Don't you have any? Oshima holds his hands in the air. Not all that many. But there is one thing. For me, inside this physical body, this defective container, the most important job is surviving from one day to the next. It could be simple or very hard. It all depends on how you look at it. Either way, even if things go well, that's not some great achievement. Nobody's going to give me a standing ovation or anything. I bite my lip for a while, then ask, don't you ever think about getting out of that container? You mean leaving my physical body? I nod. Symbolically. Or for real, either one. Oshima flips his hair back with a hand. I can picture the gears going full speed just below the surface of his pale forehead. Are you thinking you'd like to do that? I take a breath. Oshima, to tell you the unvarnished truth, I don't like the container I'm stuck in. Never have. I hate it, in fact. I face my hands, my blood, my genes. I hate everything I inherited from my parents. I'd like nothing better than to escape it all, like running away from home. He gazes into my face and smiles. You have a nice muscular body. No matter who you inherited it from, you're quite handsome. Well, maybe a little too unique to be called handsome exactly. But you're not bad looking. At least, I like the way you look. You're smart, you're quick. You've got a nice cock too. I envy you that. You're going to have tons of girls fall for you guaranteed. So I can't see what you're dissatisfied with about your container. I blush. Okay, I guess that's all beside the point, Oshima continues. I'm not crazy about the container I'm in, that's for sure. How could I be this crummy piece of work? It's pretty inconvenient, I can tell you, still inside here. This is what I think if we reverse the outer shell and the essence. In other words, consider the outer shell the essence, and the essence only the shell. Our lives might be a whole lot easier to understand. I think about my own essence, my own shell. The essence of me surrounded by the shell, that's me, but these thoughts are driven away by one indelible image, all that blood. How about Miss Saeki, I ask. What do you mean? You think she has issues to overcome? You'd better ask her yourself, Oshima says. At 2 I take a cup of coffee on a tray up to Miss Saeki's room, where she's sitting at her desk. Like always, there's writing paper and a fountain pen on the desk, but the pen is still capped. Both hands resting on the desk, she's staring off into space. Not like she's looking at anything, just gazing at a place that isn't there. She seems tired. The window behind her is open, the early summer breeze rustling the white lace curtain. The scene looks like some beautiful allegorical painting. Thank you, she says when I put the coffee cup on her desk. You look a little tired, she nods. I imagine I look a lot older when I get tired. Not at all. You look wonderful, like always, she smiles. For someone so young, you certainly know how to flatter a woman. My face reddens. Miss Saeki points to a chair. The same chair as yesterday, in exactly the same position. I take a seat. I'm used to being tired, but I don't imagine you are. I guess not. When I was 15, I wasn't either. Of course. She picks up the coffee cup and takes a sip. Kafka, what can you see outside? I look out the window behind her. I see trees, the sky, and some clouds. Some birds on tree branches, nothing out of the ordinary. Right, that's right. But if you knew you might not be able to see it again tomorrow, everything would suddenly become special and precious, wouldn't it? I suppose so. Have you ever thought about that? I have. A surprised look comes over her. When I'm in love, I tell her. She smiles faintly, and it continues to hover around her lips. This puts me in mind of how refreshing water looks after someone's sprinkled it in a tiny hollow outside on a summer day. Are you in love? She asks. Yes. And her face and whole being are special and precious to you each time you see her. That's right. And I might lose those. Miss Saeki looks at me for a while, and the smile fades away. Picture a bird perched on a thin branch, she says. The branch sways in the wind, and each time this happens, the bird's field of vision shifts. You know what I mean? I nod. When that happens, how do you think the bird adjusts? I shake my head. I don't know. It bobs its head up and down, making up for the sway of the branch. Take a good look at birds the next time it's windy. I spend a lot of time looking out that window. Don't you think that kind of life would be tiring? Always shifting your head every time the branch you're on sways. I do. Birds are used to it. It comes naturally to them. They don't have to think about it. They just do it. So it's not as tiring as we imagine. But I'm a human being, not a bird, so sometimes it does get tiring. You're on a branch somewhere, in a manner of speaking, she says. And sometimes the wind blows pretty hard. She places the cup back on the saucer and takes the cap off her fountain pen. This is my signal, so I stand up. Miss Saeki, there's something I've got to ask you, something personal, yes. And maybe out of line too, but it's important for me. It is. She puts the pen back on the desk, and her eyes fill with a kind of neutral glow. All right. Go ahead. Do you have any children? She takes in a breath and pauses. The expression on her face slowly retreats somewhere far away, then comes back. Kind of like a parade that disappears down a street, then marches back up the same street toward you again. Why do you want to know that it's personal? It's not just some spur-of-the-moment question. She lifts up her Mont Blanc like she's testing the thickness and heft of it, then sets it on the desk and looks up. I'm sorry, but I can't give you a yes or no answer. At least right now. I'm tired, and there's a strong wind blowing. I nod. Sorry. I shouldn't have asked. It's all right. I'm not blaming you, she says gently. Thank you for the coffee. You make excellent coffee. I leave and go back down the stairs to my room. I sit on my bed and try to read, but nothing seems to filter into my head. I feel like I'm gazing at some table of random numbers, just following the words with my eyes. I put my book down, go over to the window, and look at the garden. There are birds on some of the branches, but no wind to speak of. Am I in love with Miss Saeki when she was 15? Or with the real 50-something Miss Saeki upstairs? I don't know anymore. The boundary line separating the two has started to waver, to fade, and I can't focus. And that confuses me. I close my eyes and try to find some center inside to hold on to. But you know she's right. Every single day, each time I see her face here, it's utterly precious. Chapter 28. For a man his age, Colonel Sanders was light on his feet, and so fast that he resembled a veteran speed walker. And he seemed to know every nook and cranny of the city. He took shortcuts up dark, narrow staircases, turning sideways to squeeze through the narrow passages between houses. He leaped over a ditch, hushing a barking dog behind a hedge with a short command. Like some restless spirit searching for its home, his small white-suited figure raced through the back alleys of the town. It was all Hoshino could do to keep up. He was soon out of breath, his armpits soaked. Colonel Sanders never once looked back to see if he was following. "Hey, are we almost there?" Hoshino finally called out impatiently. "What are you talking about, young fellow?" "I wouldn't even call this a walk," Colonel Sanders replied, still not turning around. "Yeah, but I'm a customer, remember? What's going to happen to my sex drive if I'm all pooped out? What a disgrace. And you call yourself a man. If a little walk's going to kill your desire, you might as well not have any from the beginning." "Geez," Hoshino muttered. Colonel Sanders cut across another side street, crossed a main road oblivious to the traffic light, and continued walking. He strode over a bridge and ducked into a shrine. A fairly big shrine by the looks of it, but it was late and no one else was around. Colonel Sanders pointed to a bench in front of the shrine office, indicating that Hoshino should take a seat. A mercury lamp was next to the bench and everything was as bright as day. Hoshino did as he was told, and Colonel Sanders sat down next to him. "You're not going to make me do it here, are you?" Hoshino asked worriedly. "Don't be an idiot. We're not like those deer that hang around the famous shrines and go at it. I'm not about to have you do it in a shrine. Who do you think I am anyway?" Then he extracted a silver cell phone from his pocket and punched in a 3-digit number. "Yeah, it's me," he said, when the other person answered. "The usual place. The shrine. I've got a young man named Hoshino here with me." "That's right. The same as usual." "Yes, I got it. Just get here as soon as you can." He switched off the phone and slipped it back into the pocket of his white suit. "You always call up the girls from this shrine?" Hoshino asked. "Anything wrong with that?" "No, not really. I was just thinking there's got to be a better place. Someplace more normal. A coffee shop, or maybe have me wait in a hotel room. A shrine's quiet, and the air's crisp and clean, true, but waiting for a girl on a bench in front of a shrine office, it's hard to relax. I feel like I'm going to fall under the spell of one of those fox spirits or something." "What are you talking about? You're not making fun of Shikoku now, are you? Hakamatsu's a proper city, the prefectural capital, in fact. Not some hick town. We don't have any foxes here." Okay, just kidding. But you're in the service industry, so I was just thinking you'd better worry more about creating an atmosphere. You know what I'm saying. Something luxurious to get you in the mood." "I don't know, maybe it's none of my business." "You're right. It isn't." Colonel Sanders intoned. "Now about that stone, right? The stone. Tell me about it after you do the deed. Then we talk." "Doing the deed's important, huh?" Colonel Sanders nodded gravely a couple of times and tugged at his goatee. "That's right. It's a formality you have to go through. Then we'll talk about the stone. I know you're going to like this girl. She's our top girl. Luscious breasts, skin like silk. A nice curvy waist, hot and wet right where you like it, a regular sex machine. To use a car metaphor, she's 4-wheel drive in bed. Turbocharged desire, step on the gas, the surging gear shift in her hands, you round the corner. She shifts gears ecstatically, you race out in the passing lane, and bang. You're there, Hoshino's dead and gone to heaven. You're quite a character. You know that Hoshino said admiringly, like I said, I'm not in this business for my health. 15 minutes later the girl arrived and Colonel Sanders was right, she was a knockout. Tight miniskirt, black high heels, a small black enamel shoulder bag. She could easily have been a model. Generous breasts, two spilling out of her low-cut top. Will she do? Colonel Sanders asked. Hoshino was too stunned to reply and just nodded. A veritable sex machine, Hoshino. Have yourself a ball, Colonel Sanders said, smiling for the first time. He gave Hoshino a pinch on the rump. The girl took Hoshino to a nearby Love Hotel, where she filled up the bathtub, quickly slipped out of her clothes, and then undressed him. She washed him carefully all over, then commenced to lick him, sliding into a totally artistic act of fellatio, doing things to him he'd never seen or heard of in his life. He couldn't think of anything else but coming, and come he did. Man alive, that was fantastic. I've never felt like that, Hoshino said languidly, sinking back in the hot tub. That's just the beginning, the girl said. Wait till you see what's next. Yeah, but man, that was good. How good? Like there's no past or future anymore. The pure present is an ungraspable advance of the past devouring the future. In truth, all sensation is already memory. Hoshino looked up, mouth half open, and gazed at her face. What's that, Henry Bergson? She replied, licking the semen from the tip of his penis. Memo memole, I'm sorry, matter and memory. You ever read it? I don't think so, Hoshino replied after a moment's thought. Except for the special SDF driver's manual he was forced to study, and the books on Shikoku history he'd just gone through at the library, he couldn't remember reading anything except manga. Have you read it? The girl nodded. I had to. I'm majoring in philosophy in college, and we have exams coming up. You don't say, Hoshino said. So this is a part-time job to help pay tuition. She took him over to the bed, stroked him all over with her fingertips, and tongue, getting another erection out of him. A firm hard-on, a Tower of Pisa at carnival time. See, you're ready to go again, the girl remarked, slowly segueing into her next set of motions. Any special requests? Something you'd like me to do? Mr. Sanders asked me to make sure you got everything you want. I can't think of anything special, but could you quote some more of that philosophy stuff? I don't know why, but it might keep me from coming so quick. Otherwise, I'll lose it pretty fast. Let's see. This is pretty old, but how about some Hegel? Whatever, I recommend Hegel. He's sort of out of date, but definitely an oldie but goodie. Sounds good to me. At the same time that I am the content of a relation, I am also that which does the relating. Hegel believed that a person is not merely conscious of self, and all of which constitutes self-consciousness. I don't know what the heck you're talking about. Well, think of what I'm doing to you right now. For me, I'm the self, and you're the object. For you, of course, it's the exact opposite. You're the self to you, and I'm the object. And by exchanging self and object, we can project ourselves onto the other and gain self-consciousness. Volitionally, I still don't get it, but it sure feels good. That's the whole idea, the girl said. Afterward, he said goodbye to the girl and returned to the shrine where Colonel Sanders was sitting on the bench, just as he'd left him. You been waiting here the whole time? Hoshino asked. Colonel Sanders shook his head irritably. Don't be a moron. Do I really look like I have that much time on my hands? While you were sailing off to heaven, I was working the back alleys again. She called me when you finished, and I rushed over. So how was our little sex machine? Pretty good, I'll bet. She was great. No complaints by me. I got off 3 times. Volitionally speaking. I must have lost 5 pounds. Glad to hear it. Now about the stone, right? That's what I came here for. Actually, the stone's in the woods right here in the shrine. We're talking about the entrance stone, that's right. The entrance stone. Are you sure you're not just making this up? Colonel Sanders's head shot up. What are you talking about, you dingbat? Have I ever lied to you? Do I just make up things? I told you I'd get you a supple young sex machine, and I kept my end of the bargain. At a bargain basement price to only $120, and you were brazen enough to shoot off 3 times, nor less. All that, and you still doubt me? Don't blow a fuse. Of course I believe you. It's just that when things are going along a little too smoothly, I get a bit suspicious, that's all. I mean, think about it. I'm walking along, and a guy in a funny get-up calls out to me, tells me he knows where to find the stone, then I go with him and get off with this drop-dead gorgeous babe 3 times. You mean whatever. So I get off 3 times, and then you tell me the stone I'm looking for is right over there. That would confuse anybody. You still don't get it, do you? We're talking about a revelation here, Colonel Sanders said, clicking his tongue. A revelation leaps over the borders of the everyday. A life without revelation is no life at all. What you need to do is move from reason that observes to reason that acts. That's what's critical. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about, you gold-plated whale of a dunce? The projection, an exchange between self and object, Hoshino timidly began. Good. I'm glad. That's the point. Follow me, and you can pay your respects to your precious stone. A special package deal just for you. Chapter 29. I call up Sakura from the public phone in the library. I realize I haven't been in touch once since that night at her place, just a short note, and that was it. I'm kind of embarrassed about the way I said goodbye. After I left her apartment, I went right to the library. Ashima drove me up to the cabin for a few days, well out of range of any phone. Then I came to live and work at the library, encountering Miss Saeki's living spirit or something like it every night. And I've fallen head over heels for that 15-year-old girl. A ton of things happened one after another, enough to keep anybody busy. Not that that's any excuse. It's around 9 p.m. when I call, and she answers after 6 rings. Where in the world have you been? In a hard voice. I'm still in Takamatsu. She doesn't say anything for a while. In the background, I hear a music program on TV. Somehow, I've survived, I add. Silence, then a kind of resigned sigh. What did you mean by disappearing like that? Worried about you, so I came home a little early that day. Even did some shopping for us. I know it was wrong. I do. But I had to leave. My mind was all messed up, and I had to get away to think things out, try to get back on my feet. Being with you was, I don't know, I can't put it into words, overstimulating. Yeah. I've never been near a girl like that before, no kidding. You know, the scent of a girl. All kinds of things, pretty rough being young, huh? I guess I say. So how's your job going? It's been a madhouse. But I wanted to work and save up some money, so I shouldn't complain. I pause, then tell her about the police looking for me. She's silent for a while, then cautiously says, all that business with the blood. I decide to hold back on telling the truth. No, that's not it. Nothing about the blood. They're after me because I'm a runaway. They want to catch me and ship me back to Tokyo, that's all. So the cops might get in touch with you. The other day, the night I stayed over, I called your cell phone using mine, and they traced the phone records and found I was here in Takamatsu. Don't worry, she says. It's a prepaid phone, so there's no way they can trace the owner. That's a relief, I say. I didn't want to cause you any more trouble that I already have. You're so sweet, you're going to make me cry. You know that. No, that's how I really feel. I know, she says, like she'd rather not admit it. So where's our little runaway staying these days? Somebody I know is letting me stay over. Since when? Do you know anybody here? How could I possibly summarize everything that's happened to me in the past few days? It's a long story, I say. With you, it's always long stories. I don't why, but it always turns out that way. Sort of a tendency of yours, I guess, so I reply. I'll tell you all about it someday when I have the time. It's not like I'm hiding anything. I just can't explain it well over the phone. That's okay. I just hope you're not into anything you shouldn't be. No, nothing like that. I'm okay, don't worry, she sighs again. I can understand wanting to be out on your own, but just don't get mixed up with anything illegal, okay? It isn't worth it. I don't want to see you die some miserable teenage death, like Billy, the kid. Billy, the kid, didn't die in his teens, I correct her. He killed 21 people and died when he was 21, if you say so. Anyway, was there something you wanted? I just wanted to thank you. I feel bad about leaving like that after you were so nice, thanks. But why don't we just forget that? Okay, I wanted to hear your voice too, I say. I'm happy to hear that, but how does that help anything? I don't know how to put it exactly. This might sound strange, but you're living in the real world, breathing real air, speaking real words. Talking with you makes me feel, for the time being, connected to reality. And that's really important to me now. The people you're with now aren't. I'm not sure I tell her. So what you're saying is you're in some unreal place with people cut off from reality. I think about that for a while. You might say that Kafka Sakura says, I know it's your life, and I shouldn't butt in, but I think you'd better get out of there. I don't know what kind of place you're in, but I get the feeling that's the smart move. Call it a hunch. Why don't you come over to my place? You can stay as long as you like. Why are you so nice to me? What are you, a dunce? What do you mean? Cause I like you. Can't you figure that out? I'm a basically curious type, but I wouldn't do this for just anybody. I've done all this for you because I like you, okay? I don't know how to put it, but you feel like a younger brother to me. I hold the phone without saying a word. For a second, I'm completely confused, even dizzy. Nobody's ever said anything like that to me. Ever. You still there, Sakura asks. Yeah, I managed to say. Well, then say something. I stand up straight and take a deep breath. Sakura, I wish I could do that. I really do. But I can't right now. Like I told you, I can't leave here. I'm in love with some complicated, unreal person. You could say that. I hear her sigh again, a deep, profound kind of sigh. You know, when kids your age fall in love, they tend to get a little spacey. So if the person you're in love with isn't connected to reality, that's a major problem. You follow me? Yeah. I get it, Kafka. If anything happens, call me, okay? Don't hesitate at all. I appreciate it. I hang up, go back to my room, put the single of Kafka on the shore on the turntable, and lower the needle. And once more, whether I like it or not, I'm swept away to that place. To that time. I sense a presence and open my eyes. It's totally dark. The fluorescent numbers on the alarm clock next to my bed show it's after 3. I must have fallen asleep. In the faint light from the lamppost out in the garden, I see her sitting there. As always, she's at the desk gazing at the painting on the wall, motionless, head in her hands. And I'm lying in bed as before, trying hard not to breathe, eyes barely open, gazing at her silhouette. Outside the window, the breeze from the sea is rustling the branches of the dogwood. After a while, though, I sense that something's different. Something in the air that disturbs the perfect harmony of our little world. I strain to see through the gloom. What is it? The wind momentarily picks up, and the blood coursing through my veins begins to feel strangely thick and heavy. The dogwood branches draw a nervous maze on the window pane. Finally, it comes to me. The silhouette isn't that of the young girl. It looks a lot like her, almost an exact match. But it isn't exactly the same. Like a copy of a drawing laid over the real thing, some of the details are off. Her hairstyle is different, for one thing. And she has on different clothes. Her whole presence is different. Unconsciously, I shake my head. It isn't the girl sitting there, it's someone else. Something's happening, something very important. I'm clutching my hands tightly beneath the covers, and my heart, unable to stand it anymore, starts pounding hard, beating out an unexpected erratic rhythm. As if that sound is the signal, the silhouette in the chair starts to move, slowly changing its angle like some massive ship changing course. She takes her head out of her hands and turns in my direction. With a start, I realize it's Miss Saeki. I gulp and can't let my breath out. It's the Miss Saeki of the present. The real Miss Saeki. She looks at me for a while, quietly concentrating, like when she's looking at the painting, and a thought hits me: the axis of time. Somewhere I don't know about, something weird is happening to time. Reality and dreams are all mixed up, like seawater and river water flowing together. I struggle to find the meaning behind it all, but nothing makes any sense. Finally, she gets to her feet and slowly comes toward me, holding herself as erect as always. She's barefoot, and the floorboards faintly creak as she walks. Silently, she sits down on the edge of the bed and remains still for a time. Her body has a definite density and weight. She has on a white silk blouse and a navy blue skirt that reaches to her knees. She reaches out and touches my head, her fingers groping through my short hair. Her hand is real, with real fingers touching me. She stands up again, and in the faint light shining in from outside, But she doesn't hesitate either. In smooth, natural motions, she unbuttons her blouse, slips out of her skirt, and steps out of her panties. Piece by piece, her clothing falls to the floor, the soft fabric hardly making a sound. She's asleep, I realize. Her eyes are open, but it's like she's sleepwalking. Once she's naked, she crawls into the narrow bed and wraps her pale arms around me. Her warm breath grazes my neck, her pubic hair pushing up against my thigh. She must think I'm her dead boyfriend from long ago, and that she's doing what they used to do here in this very room. Fast asleep, dreaming, she goes through the motions from long ago. I figure I'd better wake her up. She's making a big mistake, and I have to let her know. This isn't a dream, it's real life. But everything's happening so fast, and I don't have the strength to resist. Thrown totally off balance, I feel like I'm being sucked into a time warp. And you're sucked into a time warp. Before you know it, her dream has wrapped itself around your mind. Gently, warmly, like amniotic fluid. Miss Saeki will take off your t-shirt, pull off your boxers. She'll kiss your neck over and over, then reach out and hold your penis, which is already porcelain hard. Gently, she wraps her hand around your balls and wordlessly guides your fingers to her pubic hair. Her vagina is warm and wet. She kisses your chest, sucking your nipples. Your fingers are slowly sucked inside her. Where does your responsibility begin here? Wiping away the nebula from your sight, you struggle to find where you really are. You're trying to find the direction of the flow, struggling to hold on to the axis of time. But you can't locate the borderline separating dream and reality, or even the boundary between what's real and what's possible. All you're sure of is that you're in a delicate position. Delicate and dangerous. You're pulled along a part of it, unable to pin down the principles of prophecy or of logic. Like when a river overflows, washing over a town, all road signs have sunk beneath the waves. And all you can see are the anonymous roofs of the sunken houses. You're face up, and Miss Saeki gets on top of you. She guides your rock-hard cock inside her. You're helpless, she's the one who's in charge. She bends and twists her waist as if tracing a picture with her body. Her straight hair falls on your shoulders and trembles noiselessly like the branches of a willow. Little by little, you're sucked down into the warm mud. The whole world turns warm, wet, indistinct, and all that exists is your rigid, glistening cock. You close your eyes, and your own dream begins. It's hard to tell how much time is passing. The tide comes in, the moon rises. And soon you come. There's nothing you can do to stop it. You come over and over inside her. The warm walls inside her contract, gathering in your semen. All this while she's still asleep with her eyes wide open. She's in a different world, and that's where your seed goes, swallowed down into a place apart. A long time passes. I can't move. Every part of me is paralyzed. Paralyzed, or else maybe I just don't feel like trying to move. She gets off and lies down beside me. After a while, she gets up, tugs on her panties, pulls on her skirt, and buttons up her blouse. She gently reaches out again and tousles my hair. All this takes place without a word passing between us. She hasn't said a thing since she entered the room. The only sounds are the creak of the floorboards, the wind blowing ceaselessly outside. The room breathing out the window pane, shivering. That's the chorus behind me. Still asleep, she crosses the room and leaves. The door's open just a crack, but she slips right out like a delicate, dreamy fish. Silently, the door closes. I watch from the bed as she makes her exit, still unable to move. I can't even raise a finger. My lips are tightly sealed. Words are asleep in a corner of time. Unable to move a muscle, I lie there straining to hear. I imagine I'll catch the roar of her golf in the parking lot. But I never hear it, no matter how long I listen. The wind blows clouds over, then scatters them away. The branches of the dogwood quiver and countless knives flash in the darkness. The window is my heart's window, the door my soul's door. I lie there awake until dawn, gazing at the empty chair.